Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating and honestly incredibly complex history of a land that has truly served as the crucible of the Balkans. We're talking about a region where ancient empires literally collided, where deep fault lines of religion and ethnicity intersect, and where the very concept of identity has been tested time and time again.
So how does a nation survive for centuries without an actual state? It's a pretty provocative question, right? And it's really the central mystery we're tackling today. We're going to explore exactly how a resilient multi-ethnic identity survived shifting empires, harsh partitions, and just endless political disputes to ultimately forge an independent nation in the modern world.
To make sense of over 2 millennia of history, we'll hit these 6 chapters: roots of the Macedonian identity, 5 centuries of Ottoman rule, wars, division, and Yugoslavia, the rocky road to independence, demographics and modern challenges, and finally, a rich cultural heritage.
Chapter 1. Roots of the Macedonian Identity, Ancient Foundations. Our journey actually begins in the ancient world. The history here is just an incredible layering of civilizations. Starting way back in the 5th century BCE, with the height of the Kingdom of Paeonia, the region was eventually completely assimilated by the Roman Empire around 192 BCE. But the true demographic pivot? That happens in the 6th and 7th centuries with a massive migration of Slavic tribes settling into the Balkans. And then we hit a massive cultural milestone. In the 9th century, St. Clement Ochrydzki helps introduce a written Slavic vernacular script. This was huge, because it laid the absolute bedrock for a distinct cultural identity, blending ancient traditions with these brand new Slavic linguistic realities.
A recurring theme you'll notice in our sources is the concept of a crossroads. It's a geographical and cultural intersection where competing empires, ethnic groups, and geopolitical forces constantly clashed. This geographical reality perfectly explains why this territory was continuously invaded. Romans, Byzantines, Bulgarians, Serbs, you name it. They all marched through and claimed this land. Yet precisely because it was this intense intersection, the region somehow managed to synthesize a really unique, binational, and multi-layered identity rather than simply being erased by its conquerors.
Chapter 2. 5 Centuries of Ottoman Rule, an Era of Empire.
Now, we enter a monumental era of occupation that fundamentally reshaped everything. And the crucial point here is this staggering number, 500. For 500 years, starting with the fall of Skopje in 1392, all the way until the early 20th century, the Macedonian population lived under the continuous rule of the Ottoman Empire. That is half a millennium of foreign administration. It's a profound period that deeply influenced the architecture, religion, and the entire social fabric of the territory.
But despite centuries of strict rule, a fierce spirit of emancipation steadily brewed. It started with localized protests against Ottoman domination in the late 18th century. By 1893, this evolved into the highly organized Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization, or IMRO. This revolutionary fervor eventually culminated in 1903 with the profound, though very short-lived, Kruševo Republic, which actually declared temporary freedom, civil rights, and equality for all nationalities. While it was crushed within days, its legacy as a symbol of self-determination was completely permanent. Then, shortly after in 1908, the Young Turks Revolt briefly introduced new democratic rights and freedoms.
Chapter 3. Wars, Division, and Yugoslavia. Conflict and Integration.
As the Ottoman grip finally weakened, the 20th century violently pulled the region into global and regional conflicts. The aftermath of the 1912 and 1913 Balkan Wars totally fractured the territory. As the Ottomans were pushed out, the land wasn't granted independence. Instead, it was absorbed by its neighbors. Serbia, Greece, and Bulgaria all took territorial and administrative control over different divided Macedonian lands. This left the local population without a unified state, subjecting them to varying degrees of forced assimilation depending on where borders were suddenly drawn.
Then came World War II, bringing a brutal Axis occupation. We're talking harsh division, forced assimilation, and severe ethnic violence from German, Italian, and Bulgarian forces. But out of that immense darkness came a major turning point: post-war integration into socialist Yugoslavia. For the first time, they were officially recognized. Socialist Yugoslavia established the People's Republic of Macedonia, actively promoting education in the Macedonian language and formally recognizing their unique national culture. It was a massive shift from suppression to recognition.
Chapter 4. The Rocky Road to Independence, a Path to Sovereignty.
Decades later, as Yugoslavia began to fracture in the early 1990s, the region finally saw its window for true sovereignty. But the path was highly contested. Let's trace the concrete steps of this modern emergence. It's a rapid yet incredibly difficult timeline. In September 1991, citizens showed overwhelming support for independence in a peaceful national referendum. By January 1993, they navigated some incredibly intense diplomatic waters to gain official acceptance into the United Nations. And then, in September 1995, they signed a crucial interim accord with Greece, which lifted crippling economic embargoes. Independence was literally an intricate diplomatic tightrope.
That name dispute with Greece was a massive geopolitical hurdle. Because Greece has a northern region, also called Macedonia, they objected to the new country's constitutional name. So, the 1995 interim accord required respect for sovereignty and borders, and it was a pragmatic, necessary compromise. It allowed international participation under the provisional reference FYROM, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, without Greece officially conceding on the constitutional name. This allowed the young nation to survive economically and participate globally, leaving that ultimate naming question for future resolution.
Chapter 5. Demographics and Modern Challenges. A Diverse Nation.
Independence brought some pretty significant internal challenges, particularly regarding the complex ethnic makeup of the new state. The 2002 census data reveals a highly diverse society: 64.2% ethnic Macedonians, a substantial 25.2% ethnic Albanians, 4.0% ethnic Turks, 2.7% ethnic Roma, and 3.9% other groups like Serbs and Bosniaks. It's a true multi-ethnic reality, where Orthodox Christians and Muslims, using entirely different languages and alphabets, share the exact same borders and civic responsibilities.
These demographic realities ultimately flared into conflict. The 2001 ethnic conflict involved armed uprisings by ethnic Albanians demanding federalization and greater civil rights, which threatened to tear the young country apart. But an impartial look shows that a resolution was found in the Framework Agreement. This crucial achievement successfully integrated Albanian Macedonians into the structure, trading the threat of partition for deep systemic political integration. It even granted co-official language status in municipalities where minorities exceed 20%.
Chapter 6. A rich cultural heritage. A beautiful tapestry. Through all of this strife, war, and political survival, what has endured most beautifully is the region's incredible cultural tapestry. It is truly a living museum of Balkan and Mediterranean history. Take Lake Ohrid, for example. It's an ancient European lake hiding over 250 historical monuments, including the stunning frescoes of the St. Sophia Church. Then there's the incredibly deep preserved folk music, featuring complex traditional kolo dances and lyrical klet songs. And we absolutely can't ignore their world-renowned ancient arts, with rich traditions in parchment embossing and crafting gorgeous golden pearls. There's a profound quote from our source material that says, "The Republic of Macedonia is the last segment of the national whole that has survived at the will of history." That perfectly summarizes what we've been talking about. It reminds us that this modern state isn't just a political boundary drawn on a map. It is the resilient survivor of countless historical ruptures, foreign occupations, and external machinations. It has literally survived at the will of history.
So, I leave you with this final thought to ponder. As a historic crossroads now facing Euro-Atlantic integration, how will this resilient, multi-ethnic crucible shape the future of the Balkans? As they step further onto the modern world stage, what role will this incredibly diverse and battle-tested nation play in tomorrow's Europe? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the history that shapes our world.